The alien court was filled with laughter that echoed like thunder in the grand silver hall. Every noble, every commander, every advisor had gathered to witness a cruel joke. At the center stood Princess Lyra, tall and proud, though her eyes told a story of deep pain. They called her the Barren Star. Doctors had said she could never bear a child. For a royal family, that meant one thing: useless. A broken branch of the royal line. Send her to the human, one of the alien generals mocked. Let's see if his primitive world can fix what our science cannot. The others laughed. Even the king said nothing to stop them. He only waved his hand with a tired sigh. Fine, give her to the human diplomat as a gift, the crowd roared. Lyra stood frozen, her heart burning with shame. That human was Captain Jacob Cross, a simple man from the Terran fleet, known for his calm nature and old-fashioned honor. He had come for peace talks, not cruelty. When they led Lyra before him, her chains gleaming under the alien lights, Jacob's eyes narrowed. He looked at the laughing aliens and said, "Is this your idea of diplomacy?" One of the guards sneered, "Take her or leave her, human. She's a royal joke, nothing more." Jacob didn't answer. Instead, he looked at Lyra, trembling, her silver hair falling over her face. For a moment, their eyes met. Hers were full of silent pain, his full of quiet anger. He finally said, "Then I'll take her, but not as a gift." The room went silent. "What did you say?" The guard barked. Jacob stepped closer, unfastening her cuffs gently. "She's not a trophy. She's under my protection now." Lyra's breath caught. No one had ever defended her before, not even her family. When they left the hall, the laughter started again, louder than before. "The human actually took her," someone shouted. "He'll regret it." But Jacob didn't look back. The journey back to his ship was quiet. The stars stretched endlessly outside the window. Lyra sat still, her hands folded tightly, afraid to speak. Jacob finally broke the silence. "You're not safe here. I'm taking you to my world. You can start again." She looked at him, confused. "Why would you help me? You gain nothing from this." Jacob gave a small smile. "Maybe that's the point. Not everything needs a reason." Those words stayed in her mind long after the ship entered hyperspace. When they reached the human colony world of Astra 9, Lyra expected more mockery. But no one stared. People smiled. They greeted her like a guest, not a burden. Jacob lived in a small home near the edge of the colony. It was warm, simple, filled with the scent of wood and food. He showed her the kitchen, the garden, and the small bedroom he had prepared. "It's yours," he said softly. "You're free here. Free." The word felt strange to her. That night, as rain tapped softly on the roof, Lyra sat by the window watching droplets glow under the moonlight. Jacob was outside fixing a broken fence in the storm. Something about his calmness. The way he moved, the way he never treated her like a thing. It felt unreal. When he came back in, soaked and shivering, she hesitated, then offered him a towel. "You humans are strange," she murmured. He laughed quietly. "We try to be." But not everyone was laughing now. Back on her home planet, alien nobles watched the feeds with growing confusion. Hidden cameras had been placed on her clothing when she left. They were meant to catch the humans' reaction for entertainment. Instead, the watchers saw something they didn't expect: the alien princess smiling. "She's laughing," one of the generals hissed. "She never laughed before." "Impossible," another muttered. Humans must be using some kind of emotional trick. They didn't understand. No trick could replace what Lyra was feeling. Peace. One night, lightning flashed outside and Lyra woke from a nightmare. The storm reminded her of the day she was banished. She stepped into the living room and found Jacob sitting by the fire, reading an old book. He looked up and said softly, "Can't sleep?" She shook her head. "I keep hearing their laughter." Jacob put down the book and said, "They laughed because they were afraid of something they couldn't control." "Don't let their fear define you," Lyra stared at him. "Why are you kind to me?" "Because you deserve to know what kindness feels like." Those words struck her deeper than any wound. For the first time, she felt something she never thought possible. Warmth in her chest that no medicine or science could explain. Outside, the storm passed. Inside, something new began to grow, quiet, fragile and real. And far away in the cold halls of her old home, the aliens who mocked her started to whisper among themselves, because the useless princess had stopped crying, And that, they knew, was the beginning of something dangerous. The days that followed were quiet yet filled with change. Princess Lyra woke up each morning to the sound of birds, not the harsh alarm bells of the palace. The air smelled of wet soil and green life, so different from the sterile metal walls she had known. Jacob's home was small but alive. Sunlight touched every corner. A kettle always hissed softly, and tools lined the wall where the human repaired engines. He was a man of few words, yet his silence felt peaceful, not cruel. At first, Lyra kept her distance. She didn't know how to behave in a place where no one ordered her around. She waited for the moment he'd mock her like others had, but it never came. One morning, she stood at the window and whispered, "Why do you not laugh at me?" Jacob, repairing a drone nearby, didn't even look up. What's funny about someone who's been hurt? That answer stayed in her heart all day. In the evenings, they ate together. The food was simple: roasted roots, fresh bread, fruit. But to Lyra, it felt like a feast. Jacob always made sure her portion was warm before he sat down himself. Once she tried to help by carrying dishes, but dropped a cup. It shattered into pieces. She froze, trembling. Back home, accidents like that meant punishment. She waited for the shout, the insult, but Jacob just smiled and said, "It's fine. Things break. People do too. That's how we learn." No one had ever spoken to her like that. She knelt, picking up the pieces. "On my world," she said softly, "broken things are thrown away." "Not here," Jacob replied. "Here, we fix them." Lyra looked up, eyes wet. The simple words felt like a promise. Days turned into weeks. The colony's neighbors started noticing the alien woman who always followed Jacob to the repair yard. At first they stared, whispering. Then they began smiling, waving, even bringing her small gifts, flowers, books, and strange earth fruits. Lyra didn't understand why they were kind. She was used to being hidden, not welcomed, but she began to smile back. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, she asked Jacob, "Do all humans treat outsiders like this?" He thought for a moment. "Not all. But they should." She tilted her head. "Why are you different?" Jacob looked out the window. "Because I lost someone once. Someone who was treated like she didn't belong. I swore I'd never let that happen again." Lyra said nothing, but her heart ached with a feeling she didn't recognize, something between sadness and admiration. Far across the stars, in the alien royal court, her absence had become an embarrassment. The counselors met in secret. "She was supposed to disappear quietly," hissed one. "Instead, she's making news. Look at these transmissions. The humans are treating her like royalty." Another slammed a fist on the table. "This is dangerous. If she finds happiness there, our people will start questioning our traditions." The king said nothing. He only stared at the holoscreen showing his daughter smiling beside a human. A strange emotion flickered in his old eyes. Guilt, perhaps. "Keep watching," he ordered. "If she shows signs of rebellion, we bring her back." But the watchers didn't know that something far beyond rebellion was already stirring inside her. Back on Astra 9, Lyra had started to change. Her pale skin glowed faintly under sunlight now. Her strength grew faster than before, and sometimes when she touched the soil, small plants seemed to react, growing a little faster, greener, Jacob noticed. "You've been out here every morning," he said one day, watching her kneel in the garden. "Trying to grow something?" "Yes," she said. "I never grew anything before. On my planet, only machines do it. But here, life feels different. Like it listens," he smiled. "Maybe it listens to you." Her lips curved. "Maybe it listens to us." That night, a strange warmth filled the cabin. Lyra couldn't sleep. She felt her heartbeat echoing stronger, deeper, as if something inside her had awakened. She walked outside barefoot under the twin moons, her hands trembling. She looked up and whispered, "What's happening to me?" Inside, Jacob stirred from his sleep and followed her outside. The moonlight caught the shimmer in her eyes. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. She nodded uncertainly. "Yes, just different. Like my body remembers something it shouldn't." Jacob stepped closer. "Then rest. Whatever it is, you're not alone." His voice was calm, grounding. She didn't notice her hand reaching out until their fingers touched. For a second, a faint pulse of light passed between them. Lyra gasped and pulled back. "Did you feel that?" Jacob looked at his hand, surprised. "Yeah, like electricity." Neither of them knew it yet. But that single touch had triggered something neither science nor fate could explain. a spark that would soon shake both their worlds. Back in the alien palace, one of the surveillance monitors flickered. A scientist gasped. There was an energy surge, biological, not mechanical. From where? The general barked. From her, the scientist said. From Princess Lyra. Silence fell across the control room. The general turned pale. That's impossible. She's infertile. She can't produce that kind of energy. But the readings didn't lie. On the screen, Lyra stood under the moonlight beside the human. The joke that began in cruelty was turning into something the aliens could no longer control. And far away, under the same moon, Lyra whispered one word she never thought she'd say again. Hope. The mornings on Astra 9 were usually calm, but that day felt different. The air was heavy, the sunlight pale. Jacob noticed Lyra moving slower than usual. She smiled faintly when he asked if she was all right, yet her hands trembled as she poured tea. I'm fine, she said, though her voice sounded distant. Just a little tired, he frowned. You've been working too much in the garden. You should rest. But she only shook her head. The plants like when I'm near. They grow faster. It feels peaceful there. Jacob watched her walk outside, her silver hair catching the light. Something deep inside him stirred, worry he couldn't explain. Hours later, he found her collapsed among the flowers. Her skin glowed faintly, her breathing shallow. Lyra, he shouted, dropping beside her. Her pulse was weak but steady. He lifted her carefully and rushed to the med bay inside his cabin, activating the scanner. Lines of data filled the screen. Jacob's eyes widened. That can't be right. The display flashed in bold letters. Life detected. Fetal heartbeat stable. He froze. Fetal? The machine beeped again, confirming the result. Jacob stared at the screen, speechless. It was impossible. She had told him she couldn't have children. Every report, every record from her species said the same. Yet the steady thump-thump on the monitor said otherwise. Lyra's eyes fluttered open. Jacob? He leaned close. You fainted. Don't move. Her gaze shifted to the monitor. What is that sound? Jacob hesitated. It's a heartbeat. Not yours, her breath caught. No, it's true, he whispered. Lyra, you're impossible, she cried, sitting up despite his warning. My kind can't. I can't. Tears filled her eyes. The doctor said I was born empty. Jacob gently placed a hand on her shoulder. Maybe they were wrong. She shook her head, trembling. No one was ever wrong about this. I was tested 100 times. But the heartbeat continued, steady and real. By evening, she sat silently by the window, staring at the horizon. Jacob brought her warm soup, but she didn't touch it. Finally, she whispered, They'll come for me. He frowned. What do you mean? If they find out, she said softly, they'll take me away. Study me, dissect me, Jacob's jaw tightened. Over my dead body. Lyra turned to him, her eyes wide with fear and something else. You don't understand, Jacob. They'll see you as the cause. They'll destroy you too. He crossed his arms. Then they'll have to try very hard. His calm tone made her heart ache. He didn't understand what kind of power her family held. Entire fleets, entire planets at their command. But deep down, something inside her told her that this man would never run. Far away, in the alien research citadel, alarms began to sound. The scientists monitoring her implanted sensors saw the same data Jacob did. Biological activity detected, one muttered. Internal growth in subject Lyra, impossible readings. Another shouted, trace the signal source. Within moments, the entire royal lab was active. The lead scientist, an elder with gray scales, stared at the monitor in disbelief. This cannot be. She was designed sterile. A general entered the room, his voice cold. Designed? The scientist hesitated. It was the king's order. Years ago, he didn't want her to produce heirs with impure genetics. The general's eyes darkened. Then how is there a fetus now? No one answered. Back on Astra 9, Jacob sat across from Lyra as rain began to fall. The storm outside mirrored the one inside them both. Lyra, he said softly. Do you want to keep it? Her eyes filled with tears. I don't know. I'm scared, Jacob. What if it's not normal? He leaned forward. Then we'll face it together. She met his gaze and saw no fear, only warmth. For the first time since she was a child, she felt safe. Her hand drifted to her stomach, still flat but pulsing faintly with new life. "I can feel it," she whispered. "Something tiny, like a whisper inside me." Jacob smiled gently. "Then that's what we'll call it. The whisper of life." That night, as the storm cleared, the colony lights flickered. A faint energy surge rippled across the base, origin unknown. Jacob didn't notice it, but the sensors did. A soft golden glow surrounded Lyra as she slept, like starlight woven into her skin. In the palace, the king received the report. His voice trembled with rage. "She's carrying a hybrid? With a human?" The council erupted in panic. Some shouted for her capture, others for her death. But the king only whispered, "No one must know. Send a retrieval squad immediately." The order was sealed. Back on Astra 9, Jacob woke to the sound of a distant hum. Ships entering orbit. He looked up through the window and saw lights moving across the sky. Lyra, sensing his fear, came to his side. "They found us," she said, voice shaking. Jacob clenched his fists. "Then we're not running." "Not this time." She looked at him, heart pounding. "Jacob, what will you do?" He gave her a small, defiant smile. "Whatever it takes." Outside, thunder rolled once more, but this time it wasn't the weather. It was the sound of approaching war, and inside their small home, between fear and hope, a miracle was waiting to be born. The palace of Etherion, home of the alien empire, trembled with shouts and fear. Every screen in the royal court showed the same image: Princess Lyra standing beside a human, holding her stomach, glowing faintly with the pulse of life. The council chamber erupted. "This is madness," shouted High General Vorn. "A hybrid child? With a human? It's an abomination," another roared. "Her very existence insults our bloodline." The king sat silently on his throne, his claws pressed to his temple. He had banished his daughter, thinking she would vanish quietly, forgotten by history. Yet now she had become the center of it. How could this happen?" he whispered. The chief scientist, trembling, replied, "We made her infertile by design, Your Majesty." "But something in the human's biology, his DNA, it awakened what we sealed." Murmurs spread through the chamber like wildfire. "So the human repaired what we destroyed?" One elder whispered. "No," said another, eyes wide. "He completed her." Those words struck the king harder than any blow. Across the stars, on the small colony world of Astra 9, Jacob worked quickly. He had seen the ships approaching orbit, dark silhouettes against the dawn. "They're here," he muttered. Lyra stood by the window, her hands trembling. "My people. They won't talk. They'll take me by force." Jacob loaded his plasma rifle, checking the charge. "Then I'll make them regret coming." She turned toward him, fear in her voice. "Jacob, please." "You can't fight an empire." He gave a small, calm smile. "I'm not fighting an empire. I'm fighting for you." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "They'll kill you. Maybe," he said softly. "But they'll never take you alive." Meanwhile, in orbit, the alien flagship hung like a dark crown above the planet. Inside, General Vorn paced furiously. "Prepare the retrieval squad," he barked. "We take the princess alive, eliminate the human." A young officer hesitated. "Sir, the human is part of the Terran fleet. If we harm him, it could spark a war." Vorn snarled. "Then let it come. Better war than shame." The officer lowered his head, but his eyes showed doubt. Rumors had already begun spreading across their ranks. Rumors that the princess's child was a sign, not a curse. Some whispered she carried the future. Back on the ground, Jacob guided Lyra through the forest path behind his home. "There's an old bunker from the first colonists," he said. "You'll be safe there." But Lyra stopped walking. "No, I'm done running." He turned, frowning. "What?" She raised her head, her silver eyes glowing faintly. "All my life I hid, obeyed, and let others decide my fate. But not anymore. I won't hide from them or from who I am." For the first time, Jacob saw something fierce in her, something royal, powerful, and alive. He nodded slowly. "Then we stand together." Their fingers brushed, and that strange golden pulse returned between them. The air shimmered softly. The trees around them bent slightly as if bowing to her presence. Lyra looked down at her hand. "It's stronger now. Whatever is growing inside me, it's not just a child. It's energy, Jacob, life energy." He stared at her, realizing what she meant. "You're saying?" "I'm saying this child might change everything." In orbit, chaos turned into fear. The scientists monitoring her life signals panicked. Her power is rising, one shouted. Energy readings beyond our instruments. Another gasped. If it keeps growing, she could destabilize the ship's systems from here. The general slammed his fist. Silence. She's just one woman. But deep down, he knew she wasn't. The energy of two species, the forbidden fusion of human and alien, was rewriting every law of their science. Back on the ground, the first assault pods landed. Metal claws dug into the soil, steam rising. Troops in dark armor surrounded the cabin. Jacob stood in the doorway, rifle ready. Stay back, he warned. Lyra stood behind him, clutching her stomach. Please, she cried out, her voice trembling but strong. Don't do this. The soldiers hesitated. Even through their helmets, they could feel it. An invisible warmth, a pulse of calm spreading from her like sunlight. One soldier lowered his weapon. General, she's radiating. Something. Through the communicator, Vorn's voice growled. Ignore it. Take her! But as they stepped forward, a wave of golden light burst from Lyra. It was gentle yet unstoppable. The soldiers froze, their armor flickering with energy, their weapons shorting out. Jacob shielded his eyes. Lyra, she stood glowing, tears streaming down her face. I don't want to hurt anyone. The wave faded, leaving silence behind. Dozens of armored soldiers lay unconscious but unharmed. Jacob turned to her, stunned. What did you just do? She shook her head, trembling. I don't know. In the flagship above, alarms screamed, massive energy surge from the surface. The technician shouted. All ground units offline. Bourne's face turned pale. That's not possible. The king, watching from a distant chamber, whispered, It's begun. As the night fell on Astra 9, the storm passed again, leaving the scent of ozone in the air. Jacob looked at Lyra, still glowing faintly under the starlight. He placed a hand on her shoulder. They'll come again, won't they? She nodded, her voice soft. Yes, but this time they'll come afraid. Jacob looked out toward the sky, where alien warships glittered like distant thunderclouds. Let them come, he said. Because now, we fight for more than survival. We fight for the future. Above them, the stars burned brighter, as if watching the beginning of something no empire could stop. The morning sky over Astra 9 glowed red, not with sunrise, but with the light of alien warships entering the atmosphere. Their engines screamed like angry gods. The ground shook. Dust rose in clouds around Jacob's small cabin. Lyra stood near the window, clutching her stomach. Her glow had grown stronger overnight, soft waves of gold flowing from her skin like living light. Her face was pale, but her eyes were steady. Jacob loaded the last energy cell into his rifle. They're not sending scouts anymore, he said quietly. They're sending an army, Lyra whispered. They fear what's inside me. He nodded once. Good. Fear might make them hesitate. A faint smile touched her lips. You talk like this is just another repair job. He looked back at her. Fixing things is what I do, whether it's ships or the future. In orbit, General Vorn's voice thundered through the command deck. Deploy full assault. Burn the human base to ash. The princess must be captured alive. Officers moved like shadows. Fighters broke formation, streaking toward the colony. The sky turned into streaks of silver flame, but the sensors soon screamed in warning. Sir, something's interfering with our targeting systems. What now? Vorn growled. The energy field from the surface, it's spreading. On the monitors, the golden light radiating from Lyra's location pulsed outward. Bending radar, scrambling navigation. Push through it, the general barked. No one disobeys a royal order. Jacob guided Lyra into the underground bunker. It was dark and cold, but the walls were thick, built from pre-war metal. He turned on the generator and checked the comms. Static. The ships had jammed every channel. You'll stay here, he said. But Lyra caught his hand. No, I can't hide, not now. The child. It reacts to me. It reacts to them. It wants to live. He looked into her glowing eyes, realizing she was right. The energy wasn't only around her, it was alive, responding to danger like a heartbeat. Then we make them regret coming here, Jacob said. He opened the locker on the wall, revealing a sleek metallic case. Inside rested a piece of old Earth technology, the Hammer of Dawn, an ancient orbital defense beacon left behind by the Terran fleet. Jacob smiled faintly. Didn't think I'd ever need this again. Lyra frowned. What is it? An old relic, he said, locking the beacon onto the table. One that hits back. When the first wave of alien dropships entered range, Jacob stepped outside. The wind roared. The earth trembled. He stood alone in front of his cabin, staring up at the black sky filled with fire. Lyra's voice echoed in his earpiece. Jacob, please be careful, he smirked. Careful was never my thing. The dropships descended, soldiers pouring out like shadows, weapons raised. The commander shouted, Surrender the Princess Human. Jacob lifted the beacon remote. You first. He pressed the trigger. A pillar of white light tore through the clouds, pure blinding energy from orbit. The ground exploded beneath the alien squads, throwing ships into the air. The sky turned into a storm of flame and debris. Inside the bunker, Lyra clutched her chest, feeling the power around her shift. Her pulse quickened. The baby was moving, her eyes widened in pain. Jacob. His voice crackled through the comm. Lyra, what's wrong? It's starting, she whispered. The birth. He froze, heart pounding. Not now. Not during this, but fate didn't care. The energy in her body surged like lightning. The glow filled the bunker, melting frost from the metal walls. She screamed not from fear, but from something ancient, primal, and powerful. Outside, Jacob saw the light bursting through the ground vents. Every alien soldier turned to stare. What is that? One gasped. Jacob whispered to himself, That's my family. In orbit, alarms went off across the flagship. Massive surge detected. Unstable readings. Power levels off the chart, General Vorn shouted. Divert all reactors to shields, now! But it was too late. From the planet's surface, a beam of golden energy shot upward, cutting through the clouds and into the sky. Every ship caught in its path lost power, their engines dying mid-flight. The entire fleet went dark. On the ground, the soldiers fell to their knees, blinded by light. At the center of it all stood Lyra, glowing brighter than the sun. Her voice echoed through the air, soft, trembling, but strong. Stop this, please. No more war. And for the first time in centuries, the mighty armies of Etherion obeyed. The light faded slowly, revealing her kneeling in the dirt, holding something small and wrapped in her arms. A child, half human, half alien, eyes glowing like twin stars. Jacob ran to her, falling to his knees beside her. His hands trembled as he touched the tiny fingers that reached for him. She's beautiful, he whispered. Lyra smiled weakly. She's the future. Above, the alien fleet drifted powerless. On the flagship, General Vorn stared at the monitors in disbelief. She stopped. Everything. Behind him, the king appeared on a hollow screen. His face was pale, his voice broken. Bring them back unharmed, he said at last. She is no longer exile. She is destiny. Down below, Jacob wrapped his arm around Lyra as the sun rose over Astra 9. The sky was clear again, the wind calm. You did it, he said softly. She shook her head, eyes filled with tears. We did it. Humanity and Etherion, together. The baby cooed. A faint golden light pulsing from her small hands. Jacob looked at her and whispered, Welcome to the universe, little one. And as the first light of dawn touched their faces, it felt as if the universe itself had bowed its head, to honor the miracle born from love, courage, and hope. The first dawn after the battle was unlike any other. The air was calm, the sky golden, and the ground, once scarred by war, now shimmered faintly with strange light. The forest around Jacob's cabin bloomed overnight, leaves greener, flowers glowing softly. At the center of it all sat Lyra, weak but smiling, holding the tiny miracle wrapped in silver cloth. The child's small chest rose and fell gently, her eyes half open, shimmering with both gold and blue. She wasn't just alive, she was radiant. Jacob knelt beside them, his hands trembling as he touched the baby's tiny fingers. She's warm, he whispered, as if speaking too loudly might break the moment. Lyra nodded weakly. Her warmth, it feels like life itself. They both sat there for a long time, listening to the baby's soft breaths. The battle had ended, but neither of them knew what would come next. The alien fleet still floated above, silent. The humans in nearby colonies stayed hidden, waiting. The universe seemed to hold its breath. Inside the alien flagship, chaos had turned into silence. The bridge officers stared at their dead monitors, their engines still offline. General Vorn stood at the viewing window, watching the planet below. The golden light had faded, but its echo remained, flowing through space like a heartbeat. One officer finally spoke, his voice trembling. "Sir, reports confirm. The entire fleet systems were disabled by her." "The princess did this." Vorn clenched his fists. "A single woman should not have this power." The chief scientist, pale and shaking, whispered, "It's not power. It's creation. Her energy isn't destroying. It's rebuilding." The general turned sharply. "Rebuilding what?" The scientist swallowed hard. "Everything." Back on the surface, the baby stirred. Lyra looked down, her tired eyes soft. "She has no name yet," she murmured. Jacob smiled faintly. "She should have one worthy of two worlds." Lyra nodded slowly. "Then, Aurora." The first light, the name felt right, almost destined. The child opened her glowing eyes and made a tiny sound, a mix between a laugh and a sigh. Lyra smiled through her tears. "See, she likes it," Jacob chuckled quietly. "She's already smarter than both of us." But the peace didn't last long. The communicator on Jacob's wrist blinked to life. The Terran fleet had arrived. Dozens of human ships appeared in the upper atmosphere, drawn by the massive energy surge. "Jacob Cross," a stern voice echoed through the device. "This is Admiral Reyes of the Terran Command. We detected a catastrophic energy event. Report immediately." Jacob hesitated. "Admiral, the situation is complicated," Reyes replied sharply. "Complicated? You've just disabled an alien armada and caused half the galaxy to panic. What did you do down there?" Jacob looked at Lyra, then at the child sleeping in her arms. "We didn't destroy anything, Admiral," he said softly. "We created something new." There was silence on the other end. Meanwhile, on the alien throne world, the king watched a hologram of his daughter. She sat beneath the trees holding the glowing child. Around her, the once dead soil was now bursting with life. He pressed a trembling hand against the image. "Lyra, my child." His advisor stepped forward. "Your Majesty, what are your orders? Shall we bring her back?" The king shook his head slowly. "No, she has gone beyond us. The blood we cursed has done what we could not. It brought life to lifelessness." The advisor frowned. "Then what will you tell the people?" "The truth," the king said, his voice quiet but sure. "That we were wrong. That the human did what our entire empire could not. He taught us to feel again." Down on Astra 9, the Terran fleet descended carefully, landing beside the alien vessels that had surrendered. For the first time in history, humans and aliens stood side by side without raising weapons. When they reached Jacob's cabin, they didn't find soldiers, they found a family. Lyra looked up as the commanders approached. "Please," she said softly. "There has been enough war." Admiral Reyes removed his helmet, his hardened face softening at the sight of the infant. "Is that the source of the energy surge?" Jacob nodded. "Her name is Aurora." The admiral's voice wavered. "A hybrid?" Lyra spoke before Jacob could. "No, not hybrid, harmony." The word hung in the air, powerful and clear. News spread faster than light. Across star systems, across both empires, whispers began. The Barren princess gave birth. The human created life with royal blood. The child glows like a star. Religious leaders called it divine. Scientists called it impossible. But the people, both human and alien, called it hope. Soon, from both sides, messages came not of war but of peace talks. The child had become a symbol no one could deny. That evening, Jacob sat outside the cabin watching the twin moons rise. Lyra stood behind him, the baby in her arms. The wind was soft, filled with the scent of flowers that hadn't existed there yesterday. "She's changing everything already," Jacob murmured. Lyra nodded. Maybe that's what she was meant for, to show us that life doesn't belong to one world. He turned to her and smiled gently. "And maybe you were meant to show me that hope isn't just a word." Lyra laughed softly. "Humans always turning chaos into love," he grinned. "It's what we do best." The baby opened her eyes, looking up at the sky. A faint glow pulsed from her tiny hand, and above, the two fleets orbiting the planet shimmered with the same golden light. For a brief, beautiful moment, the universe seemed united. A voice whispered across the stars, carried on frequencies neither side could explain. "Peace begins with one heartbeat." Jacob looked at Lyra, their daughter glowing softly between them, and whispered, "Then let her heartbeat be the start of a new world." And in that quiet moment, Both human and alien histories began to rewrite themselves, under the watch of the child who belonged to both worlds. Years passed quietly on Astra 9. The warships were gone, the skies were calm again, and the colony that once hid in fear now thrived with color and laughter. Children played in the glowing meadows, unaware that the peace they lived in was born from a single impossible miracle. In a small home near the forest, Jacob, Lyra, and their daughter Aurora lived a simple life. The cabin had grown into a sanctuary. Flowers that never wilted surrounded the yard, their petals shining faintly at night, powered by the same gentle energy that flowed through the little girl. Aurora was no ordinary child. She spoke before most could walk, learned the names of stars before she knew all the letters of her own name, and when she laughed, tiny motes of golden light floated around her. The animals of the forest followed her wherever she went, calm and unafraid. To Jacob, she was his pride. To Lyra, she was her redemption. To the galaxy, she was becoming something far greater. But not everyone wanted her story told. On the alien homeworld of Etherian, the royal archives were sealed. The king, old, frail, and quiet, had ordered it himself. Let no one speak of what happened, he had commanded. Let it become myth, not memory. The council obeyed. The official records claimed Princess Lyra had died in exile, childless and forgotten. The truth, they decided, was too dangerous because truth gives birth to belief, and belief gives birth to change. But even kings cannot command whispers, traders, travelers, and soldiers who had once seen the golden light on Astra 9 told their stories in secret taverns and spaceports. They said she was barren, one would whisper, but a human's kindness broke the curse. They said their child glowed brighter than stars, another added. Soon the story had spread to every corner of the galaxy, passed down not as history but as a legend. Meanwhile, on Astra 9, Jacob worked on repairing an old ship for Aurora's lessons. The girl, now 8 years old, stood beside him, handing him tools with serious concentration. You really like building things, don't you, Dad? She asked, her voice soft but curious. Jacob smiled. It helps me think. What about you, Mom? Aurora turned to Lyra, who was tending to the glowing garden nearby. Do you miss your palace? Lyra looked up at the sky, her silver eyes reflecting the light of the twin suns. Sometimes, she said softly, but the palace was only walls and stone. Here I have life, Aurora tilted her head. Life is better than power? Lyra smiled gently. Always, Jacob chuckled. She's going to outsmart us both one day. She already has, Lyra said with warmth. One evening, as twilight wrapped the land in purple haze, a ship descended quietly beyond the forest. Jacob and Lyra watched it warily, ready for trouble. But when the ramp lowered, an old alien in royal robes stepped down slowly, his once bright crown now dull with age. Lyra gasped. Father? The king's eyes softened. My daughter. Jacob tensed, ready to protect her, but the old monarch raised a shaking hand. Peace, human. I came not as a ruler, but as a grandfather. Behind him, guards carried a small chest. The king opened it, revealing the royal sigil, broken in half. I once cursed your name, he said, but your child, she mended what centuries of hate could not. If my people knew her truth, they might finally remember what compassion means. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. Then why bury the story? Because empires fear hope, the king whispered. And your child is hope itself. He looked down as Aurora peeked shyly from behind Jacob's leg, her small hand glowing faintly. The king knelt with difficulty, smiling through tears. So this is the miracle they call the Dawn Child. Aurora blinked. You're my grandfather? The old man nodded slowly. Yes, little star. And I am sorry for everything. After that day, he left as quietly as he came, but something had changed. A month later, rumors began to spread across both human and alien channels. Rumors that the Etherian king had stepped down, leaving a new council in charge. Some said he saw a vision in his final days, a vision of a galaxy united under a golden light. Years rolled forward. Aurora grew into a young woman, strong, gentle, and wise beyond her years. Wherever she walked, peace followed. Soldiers laid down weapons. Worlds once divided by hate began to speak again. She became known not by name but by title, the child of two worlds. But as her legend grew, so did the efforts to erase it. Governments censored her image. Scientists denied her existence, and both empires pretended she had never lived. Yet whispers refused to die. Because legends don't need proof, they only need hearts that remember. Centuries later, on a distant outpost far from Astra 9, a group of explorers uncovered an old recording. It showed a human man, an alien woman, and a glowing child laughing beneath twin suns. The sound of their laughter filled the silent hall like a forgotten melody. The explorer whispered, "Is this real?" An old historian beside him smiled faintly. "Maybe, maybe not. But it doesn't matter." He pointed at the frozen image. "Because even if history forgot them, humanity and Etherians still live in peace. Someone started that. Someone believed first." And far, far away, beyond the reach of stars, an old cruiser drifted through the endless dark. Inside it, 3 faint lights glowed. A man, a woman, and a girl flying together, forever young, forever free. Some say it's just an illusion, a trick of starlight. Others say it's them, Jacob, Lyra, and Aurora, watching over the galaxy they united. No one truly knows. But when travelers look up at the twin suns of Astra 9, they swear they can hear a whisper carried on the wind. A voice soft and eternal, saying, "Love is the power the universe could never measure." And thus, the story the empires tried to bury became the legend that saved them all.